discussed about the definition part of a business analysis and the best practices of business analysis. Now, let's move on to the most critical important thing, which is trying to understand as to who is a business analyst. And I believe the majority of the audience, they also comprise of majorly business analysts. So when I say business analyst, he is basically anyone who is representing the interest of the business stakeholders, and he is the one who is eliciting, eliciting the requirements, documenting the requirements, and managing the requirements. And he plays a very critical role in terms of he has to do a lot of communication among stakeholders, and he has to negotiate solutions between stakeholders and gain consensus. This is very, very important point what I have said. So when you are negotiating solutions and gaining consensus among the stakeholders, a lot of soft skills and interpersonal skills are mandatorily required for a business analyst. And because stakeholders present a huge challenge in terms of one solution being given a preference, and they're not coming on to an agreement on the solution part. So PA has to have a very, very persuasive and very, very he needs to have very good, or I would rather say, very good negotiation skills that he would have to apply while he is trying to get a buy-in on the solution that is being presented. And once the solution has been implemented, you have to basically check on the performance of the solution, whether it is actually helping the organizations to meet their business goals or not. So this is what I have. I basically talk about the major key role of a business analyst would be. Now, I have put up a figure out here. If all of my friends, if you can see the figure out here, is basically I have said what is the business analyst role here when I talk about. If you can see, eliciting the requirements is a very, very critical thing that a business analyst would have to do. And scoping is very, very important. When I talk about scoping, scoping is a very, very important activity for basically fixing the boundaries of the solution or your project, and this will definitely help you to do something which is called as managing your scope and avoid scope creep. So this avoiding the scope creep and all that would come under define scope of a business area. Now, and analyze and document requirements. When I'm talking about analyzing and documenting requirements, I'm referring to the deliverables. If you follow plan-driven approach, I'm talking to BRD, business requirement document, FRS, functional requirement specification, FSDs, functional specification documents. I am basically talking about those. And if it is agile, and many of the audience, if you come from an agile background, in agile they talk about something called product backlog. So, but invariably either in a product backlog or in a BRD, but in a product backlog you will do the documentation in terms of user stories, and in BRD it is a much more elaborate documentation that you do upfront before you actually start the development part of it. Now, validating the solutions is also very important. Once you have identified and proposed solutions and gained the agreement and all, validating the solutions, whether it is helping you to reach the business goal or not, is a very, very critical part which has to be played by a business analyst. So that's what when I say a business analyst has to do, represent the interest of the business and convey those interests, understand those interests, and act as a bridge between the business interest people and the internal development team. So I have basically consolidated, or otherwise I have projected what exactly would be the roles of a business analyst that he would have to do. So now here, if you see, I have used this in the slide. Now, most of you are any practicing business analyst. Now, during the course of work or in the experience of they working on different projects, you must have seen that they would have to exhibit a lot of techniques. So when we talk about those techniques, elicitation techniques I consider are very, very important for a business analyst. I would rather say I would qualify these elicitation techniques and problem analysis techniques and modeling techniques and documentation techniques as into the umbrella of techniques. When I say elicitation techniques, I basically mean to draw forth or to bring forth or to extract or to apply a process of uncovering the requirements, or otherwise eliciting the requirements from your stakeholders. So when you are eliciting the requirements from the stakeholders, a BA would be using various techniques such as there are a lot of techniques such as interview. You have a technique which is called as survey technique. You have something which is called as brainstorming, focus groups. You have joint application design or joint application design. Now all these techniques will help you to elicit the requirements. See, I'm of the view, if your requirements are documented correctly and if your requirements are quality requirements, then definitely the quality, you would increase the probability of you coming out with a quality product. So elicitation techniques is a very important technique, and I also use another one which is called as modeling technique. When I say modeling technique, I basically mean now you must have seen in most of the deliverables that BA works on that they that would include a lot of models. And when we talk about models, I talk about use case model, I talk about data models, I talk about wireframes, I talk about wireframes, and I talk about the workflow diagram. So many things, so many models can be used by BA to elicit the requirements and as well as document those requirements with the help of models. So that would come into the modeling techniques part of it, elicitation. And finally, the critical role that has to be done by a BA is to identify the business problems. So that is where I have put in this problem analysis techniques. And then finally I say, whatever elicited requirements that you would have elicited, you would have to document those requirements. So documentation is very, very important. And in most of my experience, I have seen in across the organization they use different names while they are doing the documentation. But most familiar are the names that I have come across are BRD, functional requirement specification, FSDs, and then in agile environment they talk about product backlog, and you might also come across some documents such as use case model, use case specifications. So those deliverables understanding also a BA would have to have, and that's the reason I've projected that as a block here as a key deliverable understanding. Domain knowledge definitely would help a BA, because there are a lot of IT companies who recruit people from a rich domain experience, because these people, when they go for requirement elicitation, they can carry a huge amount of domain experience, and the requirement elicitation process will become far more very effective. Solution-based validation, change management is a very critical area where a BA gets involved, and the approaches which are followed for SDLC, there is also one more, you have plan-driven and agile-driven. Soft skills also plays a vital role. And for the BAs who are involved in the large projects, I'm talking about the large projects where the number of solutions are pretty huge. So there you go about using some tools for software, the requirement management, and that's the reason I said software tools for requirement management, such as IBM has a specialized tool called Doors, Requisite Pro. So those all are specialized tools for requirement management. That also would definitely help. Now, if you can see on this slide, I have categorized those modeling techniques which a BA can use while eliciting the requirements. So organizational modeling is one. When I say organizational modeling, it is basically the organizational hierarchy. Or organizational modeling, then you have business interaction, location modeling. So if you talk about location modeling, I talk about where all the organization is located at, so you can go for that. Use case is about user interaction with the system and what specific goals that a user is trying to achieve. Activity is a business flow, and you also have object state transition diagram. And these are the three essential, the diagrams which are a part of UML, Unified Modeling Language. And in fact, UML has a huge set of, it's got 13 diagrams, but out of which I have categorized, I said BA would be using three most prominently. And when I say three, use case, activity, object state transition diagram. You also can go for other modeling techniques such as functional decomposition, relationship map. Data flows are definitely used, and then logical data modeling. When I say logical data modeling, I'm basically talking about conceptual model and logical data model at those are the models which can be part of the delivery. So these modeling techniques are the techniques which a VA needs to definitely have awareness towards. And the next slide, if you see, there is these are the elicitation techniques which I have put it out here. That is, if you can, I think the slide is coming up now to you. Now, if you can see, there is a elicitation techniques, and those elicitation techniques I have categorized them into, the as-is and the as-is, and for doing the as-is, you can use research and document analysis, observation, and you also have a verbal protocols, focus groups, brainstorming, and then survey techniques can be categorized into interview and questionnaires, and you also can use wireframes, prototypes, the product evaluation trials. These are all the elicitation techniques, and I have put them into one bucket area which is called as elicitation technique. Just to give you the techniques which are essentially used by the VA, one is modeling techniques, other one is elicitation techniques, and then the next one, which if you can look in here, as I said, the VA would have to start studying the business process and propose business solutions. So if you're trying to do that, so naturally you can use different kinds of problem analysis techniques, and most of you might be aware of this. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about root cause analysis, why analysis, and Pareto, and you also can use one more technique which is basically called which would be called as Pareto 80-20 rule and all. So I have questions coming up. I'll do one thing. Once I'm through with the presentation, then I'll be taking up those questions and answering those questions. Okay. Now, if you can see, there is a slight transition going on, and if you can see, I have come on to another slide that is basically talks about the interpersonal skills which would be required for a BA, and here I've presented as ability to communicate well, collaborate, and negotiation is very, very important. Active listening. So these are all the, most of them can also be put into another bucket, which one would rather say is soft skills part of it. So soft skills also do play a vital role. In fact, as I said, BA's role is a very upstream role where a lot of interaction with the stakeholders are required, and you interact with the stakeholders and gain consensus on those solutions that you propose. So soft skills will definitely play a huge role. Now, I have kept this slide. One thing, the domain knowledge. When I say domain knowledge, I have seen a lot of people who have worked in the domain for a certain period of time. Let's say 5 years, 10 years, and all. So they carry a lot of domain knowledge, and they invariably become subject matter experts. And these are the best people who are hired by IT companies, and they send their these people for requirement elicitation because they carry a huge amount of the domain knowledge, and the kind of domain knowledge that they carry will help them to do the requirement elicitation much more faster. So this is one of the other essential key skill sets also which I have included in this thing. Now this slide, if you see here, I have kept it in terms of the business analyst role. And if I see in major of the projects, if you come across in any of the projects, business analyst would play a very important role in requirement analysis process is one, change management and validation testing. He also plays roles in other areas, but I have given more importance to one is requirement analysis. If all of you would be agreeing to that, it is requirement analysis process. And then again, I have change management. In fact, requirements are bound to change, and when requirements are bound to change, there is a change management, and how the changes will be handled. So change management area also would definitely be involved. Validation testing is basically I'm talking about once it's basically at the level of the solution deployed, UAT, user acceptance testing, where he helps and facilitates the UAT test and all. So majorly, if you look at, these are the areas that the BA gets involved. And I have consolidated a set of the commonly used documents which are used across the industry and presented. And these documents are the artifacts or the deliverables that a BA would have to have knowledge about. And if you talk about a business case, that is basically the most important deliverable where everything starts with. That is, the justification of a why and a project is undertaken. And all these projects which are undertaken, they invariably tie to a business goal. So business case is one document, and you have vision and scope document, you have requirement management plan, which are key. How do you go about managing your requirements in terms of establishing requirement priority, requirement traceability, how do you handle the changes which are happening into the requirements. All that are basically part of requirement management plan. You have BRD, business requirement document. If I talk about agile, nowadays we have these deliverables, product backlog, sprint backlog, impediment list, burn down charts. These are all the prominent deliverables. If you talk about the deliverables which BA needs to be having awareness towards. Other deliverables which a BA would have come across to handle the changes. Change plan is one, and change request, impact analysis, change audit reports. And these are done in a very formal way. If the project is a very plan driven, where all requirements are defined upfront and there is a baselining done, and change management or changes have to follow a change configuration management. In that situation, you will come across these deliverables. A BA also does some contribution role, or otherwise he also needs to have an awareness towards project charter and project management plan. But these deliverables are essentially in the gambit of project management, but awareness towards this deliverable